All right, it's a Football Friday. A thank you to our viewer, Nelson, our VP of Sim Events. Nelson Hackowicz. He has pointed out to us that Calvin Pickard is in the starters net for the Edmonton Oilers. Looks like he'll get the call tonight in Game 3. Hour 2 is brought to you by Culligan Water. Clear water, clear choice. Filter out the bad and taste the good. Culligan Water of Regina. Visit their website at culliganregina.com. Okay, let's please bring in the CFL on TSN's Jim Barker. And, Coach, for the offseason, ooh, Dougie, there's a lot to talk about for the offseason in football, isn't there? Where would you like to start?
Wherever I just saw you interviewed Stu. That was a great interview. I listened to his press conference. Your interview went a little deeper, which was great.
I appreciate that, man. Like I said, I'm listening to the news conference going, don't ask my questions. Don't ask. Nobody did. So it was perfect. Well, I think a lot different than those regular reporters, Jim. But I'm fascinated to get your take on Shedeur Sanders not being drafted last night.
You know, I thought Nick Saban said it best when he talked about how the media sets these expectations for the fans. And people who are working for teams, they're not talking about who they like and who they don't like. And I've been in it long enough to know that you might not talk to someone kind of like Jacksonville, with the kid they drafted second, with Hunter. They didn't talk to him. Yeah. Hunter. Anyway, so it's not out there what the teams think. And I think that's what's important. This is all media creation that Shedeur Sanders might have been first, might have been second, might have been third. And yet, I think when you look at it, does he win? Yes, he's won wherever he's been. 75% completion ratio. That's not bad. He had a very poor offensive line. He played in a system at Colorado his last year with Pat Shurmur, who was a former offensive coordinator. So he's got a lot of positives. How he interviews, how he comes across, I think he is different because who his dad is. And that makes him different in the eyes of everybody interviewing him as to what kind of leader is this guy going to be. And again, I think that when you're talking about a quarterback in the first round, you're talking about a guy that you're basically, I'm not going to say hand the keys to, but you expect him to eventually take that car and drive it. And my prediction is that there's somewhere where there's question marks. The one that surprised me was the Giants, because I felt like that would be a good market for him. If anybody, I think that kid could probably handle the pressures of being a Giants quarterback, and I thought that might be a good fit. And to watch Brian Daboll in that room when they made the trade, I thought for sure it was going to be Shedeur Sanders, and then they picked Jackson Dart. But the look he had was like, yes, we got the guy we wanted, almost like they were afraid they might get stuck with Shedeur Sanders. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think Shedeur Sanders is a fantastic player. I really do. I just think there's a lot of things about him that none of us know. We don't know how he interviews. We don't know what those people who interviewed him felt. And if you owned a football team or your job was on the line, do you want to turn the keys over and give him the car? And, obviously nobody did enough to make him a first-round pick. Now, if he's not picked in the first 4 or 5 picks, I could see both the Browns, although the Browns just went through it with Deshaun Watson, and whether they see that as a similar type of guy, I don't know. But the Raiders just make sense to me because I know that he has spent a lot of time with Tom Brady. And Tom Brady and Deion are very close friends. And that one wouldn't shock me if he's there when they pick. I think they pick 6th in the second round.
A lot of intrigue today. But let me ask you this. Based on what you know of Shedeur Sanders, you're a GM, Jim, of an NFL team. Mm-hmm. Are you drafting him based on what you know, or Would you be scared off by his dad? Because I'm sure you've heard the coverage today. Everybody's saying, no, nobody's taking him because they don't want to touch Deion. Is that, how true is that, do you think?
I don't believe there's a lot of, I don't believe that's a true factor. I mean, it's not like when I was in Calgary where Federic was the owner and his kid was a player. It's a lot different. I mean, is Deion put pressure because he could become a head coach in the NFL? Sure, that puts pressure on a Brian Daboll. Is that as soon as the kind of pressure, we talked a little bit about it when you had Trey Ford as the backup last year to McLeod Bethel Thompson, and the kind of pressure that when McLeod didn't get wins early. Well, if you draft Shedeur Sanders and you're starting Russell Wilson, how long until, how many losses or does it take before the Shedeur Sanders, we need to put him in, we need to, that becomes cumbersome. It really does. It's hard to develop a player like that because he wants to play and fans want to see him play. That Jackson Dart, it won't make a difference. I mean, if he sits there for 2 or 3 years and learns how to play behind Russell Wilson, nobody's going to say a word about, boy, we need to see Jackson Dart. But when that's Shedeur Sanders, complete different story. And they might be afraid of that more than they are of Deion Sanders coming in and taking their job and that kind. I don't think that I could never feel that way where you're worried about somebody coming in taking your again, it's, he's a dad.
Yeah, and that comes with its own set of problems. You've dealt with dads of players for years. I can't see it either. But again, I don't think like a lot of people, so I'm not saying they don't. Doesn't seem right to me. Utah Darren writes in, he says, I don't get why everyone is so shocked that Dart was taken before Sanders. I'll just say I didn't see Jackson Dart's name on any mock draft. I didn't see Ole Miss anywhere near a conference championship. Were you surprised by that? That he went as high, Jackson Dart?
I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised. But once they took him, I mean, I like Jackson Dart. I liked him a lot. But he and again, his background, he's been at SC, and then he goes to Ole Miss and plays for Lane Kiffin in a very pro style of offense. I think he's prepared for what's coming next. He's got, he probably runs better than Shedeur, got a little bit stronger arm than Shedeur. Is he as accurate? I doubt it. Does he have the same kind of swag? No. He doesn't. And there's a lot of positives to the swag Shedeur has as long as he's winning. And again, I think that when you look at players, you look at what are they bringing to the table? And what Jackson Dart is bringing is a guy with a lot of tools, but no pressure. Russell Wilson can go out there and he's not even got to worry about Shedeur Sanders there, who to me would do to Russell Wilson what Trey Ford did to McLeod Bethel Thompson in terms of the pressure and the media of the Canadian. Why is the Canadian quarterback not in? And happened to VA at the end of the season in BC when they had to make that decision who was going to be the guy. Well, if Nathan Rourke is not a Canadian, is that pressure the same? No. Well, Shedeur Sanders is unique in that he brings that Canadian type of pressure a Canadian quarterback brings up here down there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And so tell me, just because it's draft time and the CFL Draft is next week, and I hope we have time to get through all of this, but tell me a zany draft story, because as Cowboy fans, we remember 2014 when the Cowboys the personnel people had to hide the draft phone from Jerry Jones, or else he was going to take Johnny Manziel. They're like, Jerry, no. Right? But we know that story. I'm not sure how many people do, but what zany things have happened at the draft table for you that an owner might have got involved or whatever?
We've had a couple of them. I had one where actually it happened in the morning of the draft, and Dimitri Zupas was going to go to Edmonton, and we made a trade with Edmonton for him. before the draft even happened. So he was sitting in Danny's office and had to drive to Calgary to get to us by the time of the draft, and we were able to introduce him like he had been there all along. That was a fun one. Then we had a kind of one of the things that happen all the time that people don't understand. So when you draft a player, you got a lot of people. You got scouts telling you what they think. You got coaches telling you what they think. And we had coaches a coach who didn't want a specific player. And when we did our mock draft, it turned out we had a chance of getting this guy in the second round. He didn't want him. So we watched film with him for 3 hours the morning of the morning of the draft. And finally he said, okay, I understand. I see where his value is. I understand if he's there in the second round, why we're going to take him, and I'm all in on it. Okay. And that's, I mean, all you can do is leave a meeting like that united. So the draft comes, and sure enough, guy comes up, our second round pick is him, and he mutters, not really under his breath, he goes, that guy will never step on the field here. And our president was sitting right next to him. So obviously, I hear about it at the end of the thing. I bring the head coach in. We talk about it. He wanted to fire him right there. Fired him the next day. So the coach actually got fired for, being disloyal. But that is one of the most difficult things. The more people you ask for their advice, and you want things to be collaborative, but you also have to understand there's, somebody's going to make that decision. And if you take a guy a coach is adamant against, the chances are that guy's never going to get the opportunity that he would get if that coach was 100% in his corner. It's human nature. So, yeah, I've had some wacky things happen. That's for sure.
People don't understand. I've told you, my dad was a scout in the NHL for 26 years. So it's the same from sport to sport to sport. I get it. The draft is your Super Bowl. It's the personnel people's Stanley Cup. It's what you've worked all year for. And in Sask, we had a coach literally knock the GM out of the way on draft day and start YouTubing players and picking them himself. I'm not joking. And our head scout was sitting there. He's like, what the hell were we been scouting all year for? If you're going to sit here and YouTube, what are we doing? Like, it's wild. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. I'm not going to name any names.
Not one bit.
But the CFL draft is Tuesday night. Nelson would like to know what you think is going to go down with Curtis Rourke Tuesday night in the CFL draft.
Well, I think a lot of that depends on what happens tonight. I think he's got an outside chance of being drafted late tonight. If not, the earlier he's drafted on Saturday, tomorrow, the earlier he's drafted, the later he's going to get drafted in the CFL. Will he get drafted in the CFL? Boy, I don't know. I think I watched a whole bunch of film of this guy, and I think he was playing on a bad knee. He's so accurate. He's got, one of the things you look for is that they don't, like Mitchell Trubisky, one of the things he does is he drops the ball down, and it takes forever to get out. Carson Wentz, the reason he leads the world in quarterback fumbles is because he drops the ball way down, takes forever. Curtis Rourke has got a incredibly quick, gets it back and out quickly. He's very accurate. He's 6'5", and I just think the number one thing I look at in a quarterback, and this goes back to Zach Collaros, when in high school they only lost one game. This kid wins. Rourke leaves Ohio, goes to Indiana in the Big Ten, and they not only win, they win like they've never won before. There's a lot to be said for that. And I think it gets glossed over way too much. So I'm not going to be shocked to see him go tonight. I know everybody's saying he'll go, fourth or fifth round. And that's very possible. But I could see him going as high as the third round because I just think there's a lot of positives to that kid. He's got a great elusiveness back in the pocket. He's a true pro-style quarterback. And I think he's a fit for the NFL. So again, what happens to him Tuesday? A lot will depend on what happens tonight. Same with Taylor Elgersma. Elgersma is the same thing in that I doubt he's going to get drafted. He might be a 7th round, but he's probably going to be a priority free agent. Now, how much money is he going to get? You want to know how much money is he getting to go somewhere, because then you're going to know, are we going to have him this year, maybe next year, or there's a good chance we're never going to see him. And that's where Curtis Rourke is. Taylor Elgersma, maybe not as much, but with Curtis Rourke, I just don't know what else a guy can do than what he did, leaving Ohio, going to Indiana, and putting that team on the map football-wise with playing in a brand new system with coaches he didn't know. And I found that really impressive, what he did. And I just don't think it's been talked about enough in terms of Curtis Rourke. So I'm expecting, I'm expecting him maybe tonight. But
some will say it's because he's Canadian that nobody's talking about him. But it was Indiana, not Catawba. Indiana was their best start in school history under Curtis Rourke this year. So, Coach, enjoy the draft. We'll be watching Tuesday night. Thanks for all of this. Have a great weekend.
Very good. See you Friday.
CFL on TSN's Jim Barker. We'll be right back with a sports update and all of your questions and comments the rest of the way on this Football Friday here on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcasting wherever you enjoy your podcasts.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have